Good evening and welcome to Father John's coffee break. There was a guy and said to the wife, he says, "It's your birthday coming up, what would you like?" And she says, "I'd like to be 6 again." So when her birthday arrived, he packed her up, he took her off to Disneyland, they went round all the rides, and afterwards they went to Dairy Queen, and then all the haunts that young children would go to, he took her there. And at the end of the day he says, "Well, did you like being 6 again?" She says, she says, "What I want to be is size 6. So the last video we talked about Ebed Yahweh, the servant of Yahweh, the suffering servant, Psalms of Isaiah 40, and how it explains Jesus' death and how he used the servant Psalms to interpret his death and his mission. And so the other title that he accepts, that we see on his lips, is the Son of Man. And he rejected all the political, all the popular notions of Messiah, because they were too political. And he accepts the suffering servant and the Son of Man. And the Son of Man is found 69 times in the Gospel and only once in the book of Acts, and that's on the lips of Stephen. And so the title, the Son of Man, it comes from a work called The Sayings of Jesus. We don't have any written copy of this. It was an oral tradition from which the Gospels were written. And so it was a very well known document in the oral tradition, and because of that it had great respect, and so they didn't alter the terms as they got them from that document, the sayings of Jesus. And so the Son of Man, it was within certain groups held that. The groups that wanted a more heavenly, a more spiritual Messiah, not the political one. And Jesus rejects the popular political, because mostly it's just seeking revenge. They want to get revenge on these foreigners. God has given them this land, and who are they to take this land away from them? And if you listen to some of the news reports from Israel, when they're disputing with the Palestinians, the Jews still the same argument: God gave us this land. And so that was the argument, that God has given us this land, and who are these foreigners to take it away? So they wanted to get rid of the foreigners. They had no time for the foreigners. And so it's a very political, and what they were looking for was a Messiah like David, who would be a great conqueror and get masses of revenge on these foreigners and that. And so and so anytime they tried to apply the title Messiah to him, he always corrected it immediately. And then he talked about it in terms of the suffering servant, that the Messiah is the one who has to suffer as a ransom for many. And and by the time we get to the trial scenes, it's the concept is very much linked with Psalm 110. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God. And so Matthew 26, the high priest says, "I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said, "But I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." So one of the things we notice is that only Jesus uses the title. Nobody calls him the Son of Man or anything. Jesus is the only one who refers to himself as the Son of Man. And it means that when the Son of Man appears, according to Daniel and Enoch and Ezra and all those who talked about the Son of Man, that when the Son of Man appears, it means the end time is here. And so the new wine is being poured out, because this is Jesus is bringing in the end time, which is the end time of grace and forgiveness. And so it's a time of celebration, not only for Israel, but for all the world. And so it's a time to celebrate. So the church had presented Jesus, the cross, in a very positive way, using the suffering servant themes. But now they're experiencing Jesus post-cross, in a new role. But the suffering servant doesn't go that far. It goes as far as he went to the cross. But now they need something else to explain his role post-cross. And this is where the Son of Man, because the Son of Man is someone who's enthroned. That means he sits at the right hand of God, and all power is given to him. And so Philemon, he says, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess, Jesus is Lord. So one of the first things that they see is that Jesus has been enthroned as the Lord of the universe. And so Jesus is Lord. That's one of the very first confessions of faith for the Christian. Jesus is Lord. And so he's Lord of the universe. And so he's enthroned, he's been vindicated. God has vindicated him, risen him from the dead, and enthroned him as Lord of the universe. And so in that role he has a particular function, that at the end of time he gathers all the nations. He brings all the nations together for judgment. And so so he's enthroned, but he's also given the role of judge of all the nations. So so as the Lord of the universe, he has all power and authority, and the Daniel is very clear that at the end time he's going to judge all the nations and replace the nations with the new Israel. So that's in continuity with his ministry, because in his ministry he's been gathering people for the new Israel, and all those who listen to him and listen to his word will be gathered into the new Israel, and the new Israel will replace all the kingdoms of the world. All the nations will be replaced with the new Israel. And so, but the new Israel is also those who are concerned with the poor. Part of the judgment, at the judgment scene, Matthew 25, where he's gathered all the nations, and there's a question. The question of judgment is, did you love the least of these, my brothers? And so judgment is very much connected with love for the poor. How well did you love the poor? And entry into the kingdom is only gained through love of the poor. You have to have demonstrated in your life love for the poor and the needy, as in the spirit of Solomon. And so the service to the poor is the way to holiness. And so the Son of Man brings the role of Jesus. It takes over from his role on the cross, and then his new role as Lord of the universe, and at the end of time gathering all the nations for judgment. And the $64 million question, how well did you love the least of these my brothers?